Sáng hôm nay mình sẽ thực tập ngồi thiền trước khi mình bắt đầu lễ hàng tuần. Mời đại chúng mình tìm cho mình một tư thế ngồi cho dễ chịu. Giữ lưng vừa thẳng, thả lỏng hai vai. Mắt của mình có thể nhắm mắt lại, miệng khép lại và mỉm cười nhẹ và buông thư toàn thân. Dear respected Thai, dear noble community, this morning we were practicing sitting meditation before we start our Sunday service. We invite you to find yourself a comfortable posture. Make sure your back is upright, your shoulders relax. You may like to close your eyes. Keep a light smile on your face and relax your whole body. Sau khi chúng ta chỉnh tư thế xong, chúng ta chú tâm về hơi thở. Để ý những hơi thở ra vào. Khi mình thở vào, mình nhận biết đây là hơi thở vào. Khi mình thở ra, mình nhận biết đây là hơi thở ra. Vào, ra. Mình thở tự nhiên và mình không cần dồn ép hơi thở. Once you establish your posture, bring all your attention to your breathing. Become aware of your in-breath as you breathe in, and become aware of your out-breath as you breathe out. In, out. There's no need to control or force your breathing. Breathe naturally. Mình ngồi như thế nào, mình có sự bình an, tĩnh lặng, và bất cứ suy nghĩ xen vào, mình buông ra, mình không cần theo nó. Trở lại với hơi thở, trở lại bản chính mình. Sit in such a way that there is peace, stillness. Whatever thoughts that may arise, we don't have to follow them. We can let them go and come back to our breathing. Come back to yourself. Mình sẽ bắt đầu buổi ngồi thiền bằng 3 tiếng chuông. Begin the session with 3 sounds at the bell. Thở vào. Tôi biết tôi đang thở vào. Thở ra. Tôi biết tôi đang thở ra. Vào. Ra. Breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. In, out. Thở vào, tâm tĩnh lặng. Thở ra, miệng mỉm cười. Tĩnh lặng, mỉm cười. Breathing in, my mind is settled. Breathing out, I smile. Settled, smiling. Thở vào, tôi thấy khỏe. Thở ra, tôi thấy nhẹ. Khỏe, nhẹ. Breathing in, I feel healthy. Breathing out, I feel light. Healthy, light. sad chương và xoa bóp. Please take some time to release and massage your legs. Và xin nhắc nhở đại chúng, vì nào có cell phone xin nhớ tắt cell phone hoặc chuyển qua chế độ room để mình giữ buổi lễ thanh tịnh và trang nghiêm. A reminder for those who have a cell phone, please make sure you're turned off your cell phone or switch it to vibrate mode so they keep the atmosphere of the ceremony serene. Và xin mời quý Phật tử có thể dồn lên hàng đầu của bộ đoàn để cho có đủ chỗ phía sau cho người đến trễ. Xin mời quý Phật tử có thể lên thêm một hàng nữa để mình dồn lên để có đủ chỗ cho quý vị tới sau. Kính cảm ơn đại chúng. So a reminder for our friends, we'd like to invite you to move up to the row above you or up to the first row so that we fill in all the spots and so that we have enough space for our friends who are coming later. Thank you.
Cảm ơn ông sống ngát lời phương, nguyện kết đấng nghiêm tơ vô lượng, cầu xin chứng tâm thành chúng con và
Lên trước tam bảo chi thành đảnh hương cúng dường. Ba nói vô thường trì tụng kinh chú xưng tán hồng danh. Công đức cầu cho thế giới hòa bình chúng sanh an lạc. Lại trong pháp duyên này chúng con hôm nay cầu siêu cho chư hương nghinh. Võ Văn Hảo pháp danh Trúc Thuần. Elwin Nguyễn Văn Ấm pháp danh Đức Trả. Trần Minh Châu pháp danh Minh Đào. Lâm Phú Bộ pháp danh Tuệ Đào. Vô Kỳ Bùi Văn Tân pháp danh Giác Hỷ. Laurent Colette Sunil Pavitran. Huỳnh Thị Chánh Nguyễn Văn Tâm Võ Thị Nọt. Hứa Diệu Hứa Hoài Nghĩa Nguyễn Văn Kiều. Huỳnh An Quốc Huỳnh An Chuyển Ethan Thô. Phan Thị Minh Hương. Trần Hảo Quang pháp danh Diệu Hỷ. Châu Kiên Liên Huỳnh Travis pháp danh Minh Viên. Triền Tiêu Dương Xuân Trịnh Quang Vinh. Lâm Thị Bá Lương Chẩn. Lương Thị Huệ Lâm Đại Từ. Nguyên Tùng Niên pháp danh Đồng Trường. Lệ Văn Chỉ pháp danh Định An. Nguyễn Thị Nhúng pháp danh Diệu Phẩm. Lễ Thị Mai Lễ Văn Quảng. Đồ Thị An Hoàng Vu. Trần Hòa Lễ Thị Huệ. Trần Kỷ Trần Cúc. Trần Tính Trần Lễ. Tất cả chư hương linh dương đời tam bảo lực. Đồng được về đây nghe kinh siêu sanh tịnh độ. Lại nguyện cầu an cho chư Phật tử Nguyễn Thị Điệp pháp danh Thanh Hội. Marie Patricia Petit. Đoàn Thị Thúy Phương pháp danh Diệu Mỹ. Chư Phật tử thâm tông an. Tình bình khổ tiêu trừ thường được an lành xa lìa khổ ách. Nương mong ngôi đức từ bi quán giáng đạo tràng chứng minh gia hộ. Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát. Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát. Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát Ma Tát. Xin tổn như hoa sen rạng nở như bánh đào. Xin quay về nương náu bằng thầy của nhân thiên. Sen quý nơi đa giác nộ hào quang chiếu rạng mười phương. Trí tuệ vừa thầm pháp giới từ bi thấm nhuận non sông. Vừa thấy
Without Xin đại chúng lắng lòng nghe kinh diệt trừ phiền giận. Đây là những điều tôi đã được nghe hồi một còn cư trú trong tu viện cấp cô độc rừng Thắng Lâm tại thành Xá Về. Hôm ấy tôn giả xá lời Phất nói với các vị khất sĩ: Này các bạn đồng tu, hôm nay tôi muốn chia sẻ với các vị về 5 phương pháp diệt trừ phiền giận. Xin các bạn lắng nghe và chiêm nghiệm. Các vị khất sĩ vâng lời và lắng nghe. Tôn giả xá lời Phất nói: 5 phương pháp diệt trừ phiền giận ấy là những phương pháp nào? Đây là phương pháp thứ nhất này các bạn. Nếu có một ai đó mà hành động không dễ thương nhưng lời nói lại dễ thương, thì nếu là kẻ trí mà mình lại sinh tâm phiền giận người đó, thì mình phải nên biết cách quán chiếu để trừ bỏ phiền giận ấy đi. Này các bạn tu, ví dụ có một vị khất sĩ tu theo hành A Lăng Nhã, ưa mặc y phấn tảo. Một hôm đi qua một đống rác bẩn, có phân, nước tiểu, nước mủ và các thức dơ giấy khác. Trông thấy một tấm vải còn lành lặn, vị ấy dùng tay trái cầm miếng vải lên và lấy tay phải căng nó ra. Thấy miếng vải chưa bị rách thủng mà cũng không bị phân, nước tiểu, nước mủ và các chất dơ bẩn khác dính vào. Vị ấy liền xếp miếng vải lại, cất lấy đem về nhà để giặt sạch và may chung với các tấm vải khác làm y phấn tảo. Cũng như thế, này các bạn tu, khi có một người mà hành động không dễ thương nhưng lời nói còn dễ thương, thì ta hãy đừng để tâm nghĩ tới hành động của người ấy, mà chỉ nên chú ý tới lời nói dễ thương của người ấy để có thể dứt trừ sự phiền giận của mình. Người có trí phải nên thực tập như vậy. Đây là phương pháp thứ hai này các bạn. Nếu có một ai đó mà lời nói không dễ thương nhưng hành động lại dễ thương, thì nếu là kẻ trí mà mình lại sinh tâm phiền giận người đó, thì mình phải nên biết cách quán chiếu để trừ bỏ phiền giận ấy đi. Này các bạn tu, ví dụ như cách thôn xóm không xa có một hồ nước sâu, nhưng mặt nước lại bị rêu cỏ che lấp. Lúc bấy giờ có một người đi tới gần hồ, tự thân đang bị sự đói khát và nóng bức hành hạ. Người ấy cởi áo để trên bờ hồ, nhảy xuống, dùng 2 cánh tay khoác rêu cỏ ra và khoan khoái mặc tình tắm rửa và uống nước mát dưới hồ. Cũng như thế, này các bạn tu, khi có một người mà lời nói không dễ thương nhưng hành động là dễ thương, thì ta hãy đừng để tâm nghĩ tới lời nói của người ấy, mà chỉ nên chú ý tới hành động dễ thương của người ấy thôi, để có thể dứt trừ sự phiền giận của mình. Người có trí phải nên thực tập như vậy. Đây là phương pháp thứ ba này các bạn. Nếu có một ai đó mà hành động không dễ thương, lời nói không dễ thương, nhưng trong tâm vẫn còn có chút dễ thương, thì nếu là kẻ trí mà mình lại sinh tâm phiền giận người đó, thì mình phải nên tìm cách quán chiếu để trừ bỏ phiền giận ấy đi. Này các bạn tu, ví dụ có một người đi tới một ngã tư kia, kiệt sức, khát nước, thiếu thốn, nóng bức và phiền muộn. Tại ngã tư ấy có một vết trân trâu, trong ấy còn đọng lại một ít nước mưa. Vị này nghĩ, mặc dù nước trong vết trân trâu ở ngã tư đường này rất ít, nhưng nếu ta dùng tay hoặc lá cây để lấy, thì rất có thể ta sẽ quấy cho nó đục ngầu lên và sẽ không uống được. Do đó sẽ không thể trừ bỏ được sự khát nước, thiếu thốn, nóng bức và phiền muộn trong ta. Vậy ta hãy quỳ xuống, tay và đầu gối áp sát đất, dùng miệng mà uống nước trực tiếp. Người ấy liền quỳ dài xuống, tay và đầu gối áp sát đất, đưa miệng vào vết trân trâu mà uống. Cũng vậy, này các bạn tu, khi thấy một ai đó mà hành động không dễ thương và lời nói cũng không dễ thương, nhưng trong tâm vẫn còn có chút ít dễ thương, thì ta hãy đừng nên để tâm nghĩ tới hành động và lời nói không dễ thương của người ấy, mà hãy nên chú ý tới chút ít dễ thương còn có trong tâm người ấy thôi, để có thể để có thể dứt trừ phiền giận của mình. Người có trí phải nên thực tập như vậy. Đây là phương pháp thứ tư này các bạn. Nếu có một ai đó mà hành động không dễ thương, lời nói không dễ thương, mà trong tâm cũng không còn lại một chút gì gọi là dễ thương, thì nếu là kẻ trí mà mình lại sinh tâm phiền giận kẻ đó, thì mình phải nên tìm cách quán chiếu để trừ bỏ phiền giận ấy đi. Này các bạn tu, ví dụ như có một kẻ đi xa được nửa con đường dài thì bị bệnh, khốn đốn, héo hắt, cô độc, không bạn đồng hành, thôn xóm phía sau đã lìa bỏ lâu rồi, mà thôn xóm phía trước cũng còn cách đó rất xa. Kẻ ấy đang lâm vào tình trạng tuyệt vọng, biết mình sẽ chết ở dọc đường. Trong lúc ấy có một người khác đi tới, thấy được tình trạng này, liền ra tay cứu giúp. Người ấy nhiều kẻ kia tới được thôn ấp phía trước, chăm sóc, chữa trị và chu toàn cả về thuốc thang lẫn thực phẩm. Nhờ sự giúp đỡ ấy mà kẻ kia thoát nạn. Sở dĩ kẻ kia thoát nạn là nhờ ở lòng thương xót và lân mẫn của người này. Cũng như thế, này các bạn tu, khi thấy một ai đó mà hành động không dễ thương, lời nói không dễ thương, mà trong tâm cũng không còn lại một chút gì có thể gọi là dễ thương hết, thì ta phải phát khởi tâm niệm này. Một người mà hành động không dễ thương, lời nói không dễ thương, mà trong tâm ý cũng không dễ thương là một người rất đau khổ. Người này chắc chắn đang đi về những nẻo đường xấu ác cực kỳ. Nếu không gặp được thiền trí thức thì người ấy sẽ không có cơ hội chuyển hóa và đi về các nẻo đường hạnh phúc. Nghĩ như thế, ta mở được lòng thương xót và lân mẫn, diệt trừ được phiền giận của ta và giúp được cho kẻ kia. Người có trí phải nên thực tập như thế. Đây là phương pháp thứ năm này các bạn. Nếu có một ai đó mà hành động không dễ thương, lời nói cũng dễ thương, mà tâm ý cũng dễ thương, thì nếu là kẻ trí mà mình lại sinh tâm phiền giận hoặc ganh ghét với kẻ đó, thì mình phải nên tìm cách quán chiếu để trừ bỏ phiền giận ấy đi. Này các bạn tu, ví dụ cách ngoài thôn xóm không xa, có một cái hồ thật đẹp, nước hồ đã trong lại ngọt, đáy hồ sâu mà bằng phẳng, bờ hồ đầy đặn, có xanh mọc sát quanh hồ, bốn phía cây cối xanh tươi cho nhiều bóng mát. Có một kẻ kia đi tới bên hồ, khát nước, phiền muộn, nóng bức, mồ hôi nhễ nhại. Người ấy cởi áo để trên bờ hồ nhảy xuống, khoan khoái mặc tình tắm rửa và uống nước. Tất cả những chuyện nóng bức, khát nước và phiền muộn đồng thời tiêu tan hết. Cũng vậy, này các bạn tu, khi thấy một người mà hành động dễ thương, lời nói dễ thương, mà tâm địa cũng dễ thương, thì ta hãy nên nhận diện tất cả những dễ thương của người ấy và cả ba mặt thân, khẩu và ý, mà đừng để sự phiền giận hoặc ganh ghét xâm chiếm ta. Nếu không biết sống hạnh phúc với một người tươi mát như thế, thì mình thực không phải là một người có trí tuệ. Này các bạn tu, tôi đã chia sẻ với quý vị về 5 phương pháp diệt trừ phiền giận. Sau khi nghe tôn giả Xá Lợi Phất nói, các vị khất sĩ vui mừng, tiếp nhận và hành trì theo.
Dear noble community, please listen to the discourse on the 5 ways that put an end to anger. I heard these words of the Buddha one time when he was staying in the Anapitika monastery in a Jeddah grove near the town of Sravasti. One day, the Venerable Shariputra said to the monks, "Friends, today I want to share with you 5 ways to put an end to anger. Please listen carefully and put into practice what I teach." The bhikkhus agreed and listened carefully. The Venerable Shariputra then said, "What are these 5 ways to put an end to anger?" This is the first way, my friends. If there is someone whose bodily actions are not kind, but whose words are kind, if you feel anger towards that person, but you are wise, you will know how to meditate in order to put an end to your anger. My friends, say there's a bhikkhu practicing asceticism who wears a patchwork robe. One day he is going past a garbage pile filled with excrement, urine, mucus, and many other filthy things, and he sees in the pile one piece of cloth still intact. Using his left hand, he picks up the piece of cloth and he takes the other end and stretches it out with his right hand. He observes that this piece of cloth is not torn and has not been stained by excrement, urine, sputum, or other kinds of filth. So he folds it and puts it away to take home, washes it, and sews it into his patchwork robe. My friends, if you are wise, when someone's bodily actions are not kind, but his words are kind, you should not pay attention to his unkind bodily actions, but only be attentive to his kind words. This will help you put an end to your anger. My friends, this is the second method. If you become angry with someone whose words are not kind, but whose bodily actions are kind, if you are wise, you will know how to meditate in order to put an end to your anger. My friends, say that not far from the village there is a deep lake, and the surface of that lake is covered with algae and grass. There is someone who comes near the lake who is very thirsty, suffering greatly from the heat. He takes off his clothes, jumps into the water, and using his hands to clear away the algae and grass, enjoys the bathing and drinking the cool water of the lake. It is the same, my friends, with someone whose words are not kind, but whose bodily actions are kind. Do not pay attention to that person's words. Only be attentive to his bodily actions in order to be able to put an end to your anger. Someone who is wise should practice in this way. Here is the third method, my friends. If there is someone whose bodily actions and words are not kind, but who still has little kindness in his heart, if you feel anger towards that person and are wise, you will know how to meditate to put an end to your anger. My friends, say there is someone going to a crossroads. She is weak, thirsty, poor, hot, deprived, and filled with sorrow. When she arrives at the crossroads, she sees a buffalo serpent with a little stagnant rainwater in it. She thinks to herself, there is very little water in this buffalo's footprint. If I use my hand or a leaf to scoop it up, I will stir it up and it will become muddy and undrinkable. Therefore, I will have to kneel down with my arms and knees on the earth, put my lips right to the water, and drink it directly. Straight away, she does just that. My friends, when you see someone whose bodily actions and words are not kind, but where there is still little kindness in her heart, do not pay attention to her actions and words, but to the little kindness that is in her heart, so that you may put an end to your anger. Someone who is wise should practice in that way. This is the fourth method, my friends. If there is someone whose words and bodily actions are not kind, and in whose heart there is nothing that can be called kindness, if you are angry with that person and you are wise, you will know how to meditate in order to put an end to your anger. My friends, suppose there is someone on a long journey who falls sick. He is alone, completely exhausted, and not near any village. He falls into despair, knowing that he will die before completing his journey. If at that point someone who comes along and sees this man's situation, she immediately takes the man's hand and leads him to the next village, where she takes care of him, treats his illness, and makes sure he has everything he needs by way of clothes, medicine, and food. Because of this compassion and loving kindness, the man's life is saved. Just so, my friends, when you see someone whose words and bodily actions are not kind, and in whose heart there is nothing that can be called kindness, give rise to this thought. Someone whose words and bodily actions are not kind, and in whose heart is nothing that can be called kindness, is someone who is undergoing great suffering. Unless he meets a good spiritual friend, there will be no chance for him to transform and go to realms of happiness. Thinking like this, you will be able to open your heart with love and compassion towards that person. You will be able to put an end to your anger and help that person. Someone who is wise should practice like this. My friends, this is the fifth method. If there is someone whose bodily actions are kind, whose words are kind, and whose mind is also kind, if you are angry with that person and you are wise, you will know how to meditate in order to put an end to your anger. My friends, suppose that not far from the village there is a very beautiful lake. The water in the lake is clear and sweet. The bed of the lake is even. The banks of the lake are lush with green grass, and all around the lake, beautiful fresh trees give shade. Someone who is thirsty, suffering from heat, whose body is covered in sweat, comes to the lake, takes off his clothes, leaves them on the shore, jumps down into the water, and finds great comfort and enjoyment in drinking and bathing in the pure water. His heat, thirst, and suffering disappear immediately. In the same way, my friends, when you see someone whose bodily actions are kind, whose words are kind, and whose mind is also kind, give your attention to all his kindness of body, speech, and mind, and do not allow anger or jealousy to overwhelm you. If you do not know how to live happily with someone who is as fresh as that, you cannot be called someone who has wisdom. My dear friends, I have shared with you the 5 ways to put an end to anger. When the bhikkhus heard of Venerable Puja's words, they were happy to receive them and put them into practice.
Kính mời đại chúng mang theo số 20. Please turn to page 20. Đệ tử chúng có từ vô thị
Vậy bao hiểm chướng bởi lầm mê vào sinh
ra từ
biết bao lần nãy đến trương đại vô thượng nhân biết rằng khổ lâu đời trôi vàng hôm nay trong thấy đạo huy hoàng còn hướng về theo anh từ quang lại phân tỏ soi được giờ bước bao tội khổ
trong đời ác trường vì tham sân si
mà gây nên hôm nay đây không thiên thể quyền
sẽ sám hối để lòng thanh thoát
trí tuệ quang minh như nhớ nguyện từ bi vô lượng cứu quần
sanh có những tâm nguyện sống đời lành đem tháng nạn hướng tam bảo
Lệnh thuyền tư vượt qua biển khổ cầm đuốc thiên ra khỏi rừng mê
Văn tử tu sẽ nguyên hành trì thăng miệng ý nói về chánh kiến đi đứng nằm nói niệm
vào ra cười nói tướng đoan nghiêm mỗi khi tâm buồn giận lo phiền
quyền niệm trở về hơi thở mọi bước chân đi vào tình độ
mỗi cái nhìn thấy được pháp thân khi sau càng tia số sau trần
đem đi thân tình truyền phòng hồ
tạo khi năm xưa rồi truyền hóa vườn tam tuệ giác nở trăm hoa niềm
an vui đến khắp mọi nhà hạt do tố đêm về muôn lối
cô nàng tân sẽ mọi loài đã nguyện về nước bóng đại từ. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát Phật cúng dường. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát Phật cúng dường. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát Phật cúng dường. Bao nhiêu lầm lỗi cùng gió tâm tam tịnh, còn đâu dấu lỗi lầm sám hối xong rồi lòng nhẹ nhõm nhang xưa mây và vẫn thông dòng. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát đầu sám hối. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát cầu sám hối. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát cầu sám hối. Nguyện ngày an là đem an lành, ngày đeo sao thời điều an lành trong mọi giây mỗi phút. Cầu ta bảo nước che chở. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát tiêu tai giá kia tường. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát tiêu tai giá kia tường. Nam mô Đức Bồ Tát tiêu giá kia tường. Con về nước tựa bồn người đưa được chỉ lối cho con trong cuộc đời. Con về nước tựa pháp con đường của tình thương và sự hiểu biết. Con về nước tựa tăng đoàn thể của những người nguyện sống. Đời đến tâm trí tụng kiến tâm nhiều và tạo công đức vô biên. Để được sinh hồi hướng cho chúng sanh mỗi miền. Pháp môn xin nguyện hồng ân địa xin nguyện đền phiền não xin nguyện đoàn hòa bổn xin Xin mời chúng cùng sát chân. Please massage the release feet before standing up. In gratitude to our parents that gives us life and our nation that keeps us safe, we bow deeply to the three jewels in the 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ cha mẹ sanh thành vững dân bảo hầu, cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong mười phương. In gratitude to our teachers and friends that support us on the path, we bow deeply to the three jewels in the 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ sư trường giáo liệt vị tinh thí đàn na, cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong mười phương. In gratitude to all the plants, animals, and mineral world, we bow deeply to three jewels in the 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ mỗi loài chúng sanh cây cỏ đắng đam, cúi
Please be seated. Kính mời đại chúng cùng chắp tay niệm Phật. Nam mô A Bồ Ma Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam Bồ Ma Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam Bồ Ma Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Dear respected Thai, dear brothers and dear sisters, dear community, usually after the chanting session, we would have English sharing. So today is my turn in the rotation, and today is October 22nd of the year 2023, and we're here at the Trúc Lâm Monastery doing our weekly Sunday sessions. How's everyone doing today? It's a little bit colder. I know that last night, I had to fish out all my winter clothes, getting ready for old man winter just around the corner. And so we have to, of course, I think all of us will have to prepare because today is, I believe the high is 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, and then starting this week it will be in the minus degrees Celsius. And usually this year for fall it was warm fall, but for this winter it looks like it's just around the corner. And of course next week is Halloween, so if you have kids that have to go and do trick-or-treat, it might be very cold. So some of us might have to bring our kids to indoors, like the mall or something, to do trick-and-treat. But on that note, today I want to share a little bit about Maras within the spirit of Halloween, where there's spirits and ghosts. In the Buddhist sense of Maras, when we talk about Mara, the word Mara itself means an end to something. So here in the Buddhist context, the word Mara means an end to awakening, or it could be an obstacle for the practice. So during the Buddha's time, when the Buddha was about to be awakened or enlightenment on the 49th day, the Mara came with many illusions to try to steer the Buddha away from enlightenment. So the Maras, for example, these were all kind of in the mind, not physically there, but sent armies, soldiers to stop the Buddha from becoming the Buddha, or had women dancing in front of the Buddha to prevent the Buddha from becoming enlightened, for example. And in our practice, if you practice for a long time, it's not a matter of if you will have obstacles. You will have obstacles during your practice. Even within our own life, we have obstacles. We have things that prevent us from going forward. So today I want to share a little bit about the 4 types of Maras. The first one is a little bit the Mara of death. So death can be an obstacle, obviously, because if we have passed, or we have someone who has passed, it can become an obstacle for our practice. And of course, if the passing of someone or our own passing, then of course we cannot go further on the practice. So in Buddhism, we always talk about death, and it's not about focusing on death in itself, but what death can have, its profound effects have on us. Death was one of the 4 types of imagery where the prince, before he became the Buddha, he went into a village and saw bodies on top of each other, and they were all dead. So the image of death helps us to realize that life is impermanent, is that life, the passing of ourselves or someone else can happen at any moment. We don't have an appointment with death. You can see that on the altar, when you look at the back, there's many people who pass away not because they're old, but they could pass away when they're quite young, even if they're a baby, they can pass away. So what does this teach us? It teaches us that we have to live fully in each moment. Life is, if you think about it, it's quite short. The Buddha once asked the students, how long is life? Someone said 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. And the Buddha said, no, that's wrong. The Buddha said that life is within one breath. So when you breathe in, and if you don't breathe out, then your life is gone. So what happens if we're not mindful of death, mindful of someone's passing? So the 6 shortcomings of not being mindful of death, the first one is not being able to continue the path, not being able to know the teachings of the Buddha, or if you go to church, you're not able to follow the teachings of maybe the Pope or the monk or the priest. Second is, even if you know the teachings, because your body, you pass away, for example, then you are not able to continue what you have learned in the practice. The third is, even if you put into practice, and we have other intentions, maybe you practice to transform your suffering, you practice to transform your emotions, then you're not able to do so. Losing the determination to practice earnestly. So if we're not mindful of the death, then we're not able to have something to push us forward. If we know that impermanence is in the back of our mind, then we should always try to practice when we can, because if we don't, then if we pass away, then we don't have time to practice. The fifth is our destructive actions can prevent us from liberation. So if we're unmindful of death, then we're not mindful of what we do to each other, the way we speak, the actions that we have for one another. I remember driving with one of the monks, and the monks was sharing about how there was one person who was quite saying things that were quite hurtful. And he shared with me that sometimes that the things that we say to each other can hurt each other more than even someone getting hurt or getting stabbed or getting hurt physically. So the words that we say to one another stays in the other person, so those can hurt each other. And the sixth shortcoming is to die with regrets. So if we're not mindful of death, and suddenly we pass away, and we're on our sickbed, then we don't have the opportunity to do what the things we want to do in life. So being mindful of death helps us to realize that life is short and life is impermanent. In a very short life, sometimes we get caught up in many different notions or concepts. Tai always talks about the 8 types of winds. The first one is praising and criticism. We're always back and forth. When we get praise, of course, we love it. We love to be praised. We love to be people praising us. But of course, whenever someone says to us, maybe you can improve on this and that, criticism, then we might get a little bit hurt. But if you're mindful, you know that these criticisms can help us grow, can improve. But maybe sometimes we might take it the wrong way, and it can hurt us even more. The second wind is good news and bad news. If we're hearing good things from our loved ones, of course we love it. But of course if we hear bad things, we argue with our loved ones, and of course we don't like that. The third is gains and losses. So we of course want to have more. We live in a society where we want to have more and more and more. And if we lose the things that we love, whether it's material possessions or money or position, for example, then we suffer. Things going well and poorly. So for example, if we're healthy, we're happy. If we're feeling sick, then of course we will be sad and very disappointed, or we're not, maybe our friends are going to a party, and of course we're not feeling too well, so we can't go to that party. So these things, these 8 winds, 4, they come in 2s. So these things can sway us back and forth from good and bad, for example. So what are the solutions to these maras of death? So the first one is to be steadfast in our practice without being bothered by others. So when we practice at home, for example, Thay always shares that, let's say you live in a family, you can't just practice all day. You can't just meditate all day and forget everyone's around you. You have to be, when you practice, you have to be mindful of your family, being mindful of your children. Maybe in the morning you wake up early, you meditate, do some chanting, for example, but you can't just forget about your children. They have to go to school, you have to prepare, those kind of things. So when we practice, we have to know the right way to practice and not be overwhelmed by that practice. Having deep awareness and commitments. So when we are mindful of death, we are mindful that life is impermanent, again, like I shared earlier, and that if life is so short, we have to try our best to live fully in each moment, live fully whenever we're with our loved ones, because we don't know, we can't guarantee that they will be there in the next family gathering, for example. Maybe you gather during Thanksgiving, and then you gather Christmas, and then there's a time in between. You don't know if they're going to be there for Christmas, for example. So that's why in retreats, we have 500 people in the past retreat, fall retreat, and we don't know that all these 500 people will come back for the winter retreat or come back for the summer retreat. So when you're here at Westlock, when you practice, then you have to live fully in each moment. The third solution is not getting caught up in small things. Usually we have problems, we all have problems, and sometimes we tend to make it much grander than it is. There's a Tibetan nun that coined the term, no big deal. And sometimes we have to say that to ourselves, no big deal, because maybe you failed an exam and then you suffer because maybe it's something that's quite important, but maybe we can say to ourselves, no big deal. Maybe in the next exam we can do better. Maybe we can learn from our shortcomings and improve on the next exam, for example. Another solution is willing to be go against the grain of society. So in Plum Village, they always say that the community there is the Sangha of resistance. Why is that? Because everyone is following the flow of the river. Whether there's suffering, fear, loss, everyone's just following that river. But as a Sangha of resistance, sometimes we have to not be in the river, but we can step away and just sit on the bank of the river and examine why society is pushing towards us, towards certain things, certain emotions, fear, You know, with everything that's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of fear in the world. With the wars in Israel, Ukraine, there's a lot of fear in our consciousness. So those feelings, sometimes we can get swept away. We can get carried away by those thoughts, by the news, etc. And as a Sangha of resistance, we have to find solutions that are more concrete instead of getting lost in the news. Finding ourselves amongst the ranks of dogs. So you may ask yourself, what does that mean? It means that we have to sometimes be humble. We have to lower ourselves. We have a lot of pride. So when you are amongst the ranks of dogs, it means that you are able to be everywhere. You're equal. You treat everyone as equal. You don't treat everyone as someone better than the other person. Sometimes I think that you have a close affinity with a friend, for example, and some stranger is, a stranger, but you have to think of that person could potentially be a friend, because before your friend became your friend, he was also a stranger. So when you live in a community, practitioners, you always understand that before everyone can be your friend, if you know how to come and approach them, and they can be someone close to you if you know how to. And so these solutions, they're sometimes called diamond strong, because diamond is something quite concrete, very strong. So if you have a very strong solution, a strong steadfast way, then you're able to overcome the Mara of death. And of course, the final solution of overcoming the Mara of death is the understanding of emptiness. So emptiness is not like a cup of water, a cup, and there's no more water in it, so it's empty. But emptiness here means that it's empty of a separate self. Everyone who is sitting here is composed of many different elements. We are not just you. You are composed of your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. So we're elements. The sun can also be part of us, because there's a book by the Zen master Tenzin Han, The Sun, My Heart. It means that the sun is also a heart, your heart, because without the sun, we wouldn't be living. We have a heart within us, but we also have a heart outside of us. So there's so many different elements that are part of us, and we have to realize that. So if you Taya always shares that when someone passes away, when you go to their funeral, you can understand the impact of what they had to their friends, their family, by the amount of people who come. And it's not saying that more people is better, but maybe this person had more impact or had touched a lot of people's heart. And so when we're able to know that, we understand that one person's passing is not just as simple as that our passing of someone that we love impacts a lot of people. So that is the Mara of death. The second one is the Mara of disturbing emotions or attitudes. So, for example, we have desire, we have attachment, anger, pride, and these emotions can become an obstacle. So like I shared earlier, that sometimes we get angry, we get jealous, and that kind of pollutes our way of seeing the world. If we wake up in the morning and we wake up angry, of course everything we see everything in anger. If we see the world with disappointment or sadness, that's how we see the world. And I think that one of my things to do is whenever we wake up in the morning, we try to smile. Smile, not because we're crazy or anything, but we smile because we know that we're alive, and we have 24 brand new hours before us. And so we have to look with eyes of compassion. So once you open your eyes in the morning, The way we perceive the world, which I will explain later, is how we see the world. So, and sometimes when we do have negative emotions, it could be a great teaching for us. If we don't know how to be sad, we don't know how to be angry, then how can we know what happiness is? If we're always happy, then how do we know what anger is? So I think sometimes we have to look at these so-called negative emotions in a different light. We can see them as teachings or a way of seeing, knowing that happiness is also possible. So if we're angry, maybe we're angry at someone. My brothers just read the 5 ways of putting an end to anger. And sometimes we're angry at someone, and someone did something to us, but we don't know why. We don't know, maybe that person is going through something, maybe that person is suffering, and maybe that person is just having a lot of emotion, sadness, and that's why that person maybe said some things to you and you become angry. But if you look deeper, just like in the sutra, the discourse, it said that if that person's action is not kind, if that person's speech is not kind, then you look at something else. You look at their heart. Maybe if you look deeper at their, the way, maybe they cook food for you, for example, but they do it really out of anger, but you know that they still cook the food for you. So you know there's a little bit of love, kindness within them. So instead of focusing on their actions and speech, we can focus on to their other aspects. The third Mara is the Mara of the aggregates. So in Buddhism, there's 5 of them. And aggregates is how we see the world. So for example, the first one is form. Second is feelings. Third is perceptions. Fourth is mental formations. And fifth is consciousness. So first, form. The objects that we see with our eyes, or we hear with our ears, or touch, those are related to form. Now you may think that when you see something, you may think it's real. It is what it is. So you see with your eyes and you think it's real. But I remember when we were at the airport and we were saying our farewells to one of our dear brothers, Brother Johnson, Brother Junghai, and one of the young novices, I was testing their vision because they were watching the Edmonton Oilers play a team, and they were watching. I was like, "Can you see the score?" Because the score was quite far, and they said yes. But then I said there was something even further, and I said, "Can you see that?" And they said, "No, it's too far." And I was like, the eyes of a human is quite limited, but if there was a bird or something, have really nice, good vision, it could probably see that. So our eyes is also limited because of our physical constraints. So even if you're maybe partially blind, then of course you cannot see. So form is, you may think it's real, but it can be very different for other people. Second is feelings. So we tend to classify our feelings as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So of course, if we're angry, we're unpleasant. If we're happy, we're pleasant. And if we're no feelings at all, okay, then we're neutral. So our feelings usually fall into those 3 categories. The third is perceptions. So sensing and recognition processed through our senses. So the way we perceive the world. So this is related to form. So when we see something, then obviously we have emotions attached to what we're seeing. So for example, if you're seeing someone for the first time, I read that somewhere that within 20 seconds you have already prejudgment of who they are. You may like them or not like them just within the first 20 seconds. But then when you meet them, it's just much different. It's the way they speak to you or their actions. So our perceptions, because of our life experience, or maybe we just see the world, if we see the world quite negative, then everyone we meet, we think it's negative. So our perceptions play a role in how we see the world. Mental formations is the narratives, the stories that we make in our mind. So let's come back to the example of seeing that person. Maybe we can see that person has maybe a white shirt and has a stain on the white shirt. Then you may think that, oh, maybe the story is that this guy is not taking care of himself and he's just eating very sloppy and just, not taking care of themselves. So that's, for example, a story, something that we make in our mind. The fifth one is consciousness. So being aware of sensory experiences as they happen. So coming back to the news story of the wars, those things can instill fear within all of us. So it stays within our mind. So if we go on the streets, we're a little bit more careful, for example, or it just, how we deal with the world is really depends on how we take in the news, things within society, and that's how those things are staying in our mind. So in a sermon by the Buddha, famously known as the fire sermon, it says that these aggregates, the things that I listed, forms, feelings, mental formations, consciousness, and perceptions, they're like fuel for the fire. And this fire represents delusion or aversion. So when we see the world, we think that's what it is. We see it, so it's real. But then when you look closer, then you know that it's not real. So for example, there was a story about 6 blind men who touched an animal, an elephant actually, and they only touched one part of the elephant. So one man touched the trunk, one man touched the tail, one man maybe touched the tusk. So they all had a different interpretation of what an elephant is. So in this story, it talks about how they only know one part of the elephant, but they don't know the whole of the elephant. So, and sometimes we get mistaken and we get attached to our own views of what an elephant is like. For example, and that's an example. Maybe that man says that the elephant is smooth and kind of like marble. So maybe that person was touching the tusk of an elephant. So, and they argue with the other blind men saying that this elephant is smooth. And of course the other men thinks that the skin on an elephant is not smooth, it's actually rough. Maybe that person was touching the trunk or the feet of the elephant. So sometimes we don't know the whole picture. So knowing the solution, knowing that these 5 aggregates are always changing, so impermanent, and that these conditions are transient, so they're always changing. The fourth and the last Mara is the Mara of desire. So here it talks about during the Buddha's time, the Mara created images of things that maybe the Buddha would like. Maybe it was the desire for women, or lots of food, or something like that. So sometimes when we are presented with something, we always have to be careful if we're almost like a stranger giving us candy if we're kids, to always be aware of the things that are given to us quite easily. If it's something that's quite easily given to us, there must be something behind that intention. If someone is really nice to us, maybe we have to be critical. Maybe that person wants something from us, so maybe that person is trying to trick us, for example. So the Mara of desire for food, for fame, for sleep, sensual desires, money, fame. So these things can become obstacles for our practice. So I hope that was clear, the 4 types of Maras. Sometimes they're not equivalent as like demons or devils. Sometimes when you watch horror movies, you know that these beings try to take away the main character away from the light. In this sense, Mara is more of personification of desire. Can also become an obstacle for our practice. So when we know these obstacles, we're aware of them, we try to find ways to overcome them or transform them. So the first one is the Mara of death. The second one is the Mara of emotions, disturbing emotions. The third one is the Mara of the aggregates. And the fourth one is the Mara of desire. So I hope that's clear. And thank you for listening. And see you in a month. Thank you. Yeah, Đại Chúng, Saturn, please release your legs before we do ancestor ceremony. Chúng nghe tiếng khánh, kính mời